I don't care what your reservation says. We don't have any rooms available for your kind tonight. The words cut through the air like a blade, each syllable deliberate, designed to wound. Maya Richardson stood in the marble lobby of the Grandview Resort in Charleston, South Carolina, her luggage at her feet, her business suit tailored and expensive, her black American Express card in hand. None of it mattered. The only thing the woman behind the desk saw was the color of Maya's skin. Maya's heart slammed against her ribcage, but her voice remained steady. Excuse me? I have a confirmed reservation. Under Richardson. The desk clerk, a woman whose name tag read Jennifer Patterson, looked Maya up and down with undisguised contempt. Her lip curled into something that resembled a smile, but there was no warmth in it. Only cruelty. Only hatred dressed up as customer service. The system shows that reservation was cancelled, Jennifer said, emphasizing each word like she was speaking to a child. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the motels off Highway 17? The way she said motels made it clear what she meant. The cheap places. The rundown places. The places where people like Maya belonged, in Jennifer's mind. Behind Maya, the lobby buzzed with activity. Wealthy guests checked in without incident. A family with crying children was escorted to their suite with warm smiles. A businessman talked loudly on his phone while a bellhop took his bags. An elderly couple received champagne and warm towels as they were led to the elevator. All of them white. All of them welcome. Maya noticed 3 other staff members standing nearby. One was Robert Chen, a young man she'd personally hired 6 months ago during her last visit. The others she didn't recognize. All of them watched this humiliation unfold. None of them said a word. I'd like to see the reservation system, Maya said calmly. There must be a mistake. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Are you calling me a liar? I'm saying there's been an error. I made this reservation 3 weeks ago. I received a confirmation email. I have it right here on my phone. Maya pulled out her phone to show the confirmation, but Jennifer waved her hand dismissively. Email confirmations don't mean anything if the system says otherwise. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. You're holding up the line. There was no line. The lobby was busy, but no one was waiting behind Maya. I'd like to speak to your manager, Maya said, her voice dropping to a dangerous calm that anyone who truly knew her would recognize as a warning sign. Jennifer rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes. Mr. Hall is busy with important guests. I'm sure you understand. The condescension dripped from every word. Important guests. The implication was clear. Maya wasn't important. Maya didn't matter. Then I'll wait, Maya said. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, or I'll call security. Jennifer reached for the phone on the desk, her fingers hovering over the buttons. We have the right to refuse service to anyone, and right now, you're causing a disturbance. Maya hadn't raised her voice. Hadn't moved aggressively. Hadn't done anything except stand there and ask for the room she'd reserved and paid for. But in Jennifer's world, her mere presence was a disturbance. Around them, other guests glanced over with curiosity and discomfort. Some looked away quickly, not wanting to be involved. Others stared openly, watching this black woman being denied service, their faces unreadable. No one intervened. No one asked questions. No one said, "Wait, this doesn't seem right." Maya felt the weight of her grandmother's memory pressing on her chest. Dorothy Richardson had spent 50 years cleaning hotels like this one. 50 years scrubbing toilets and changing sheets in places where she wouldn't have been allowed to sleep as a guest. Dorothy had come home exhausted every night, her hands calloused and raw, telling stories about how she was treated like she was invisible. Or worse, like she was a problem that needed to be managed and contained. When Dorothy died, she left Maya a small fortune she'd saved penny by penny, dollar by dollar, over 5 decades of backbreaking work. And she'd left one instruction: build something they can never take from us, baby girl. Build something beautiful and make sure people like us are always welcome there. Maya had built the Grandview Resort from the ground up. 15 years of planning, designing, fundraising, and construction. She'd poured every dollar of her inheritance and every ounce of her soul into creating a luxury resort that represented everything her grandmother had fought for. Dignity. Excellence. Equality. And now, standing in the lobby of her own creation, she was being told she wasn't welcome. I'll leave, Maya said quietly, reaching for her bags. But I'll be back in 9 minutes. Jennifer smirked, clearly believing she'd won some kind of victory. Don't bother. Security has your description now. If you come back, you'll be arrested for trespassing. Maya picked up her luggage and walked toward the door. She could feel every eye in the lobby on her back. Could feel the weight of their judgment, their pity, their silent complicity. She pushed through the glass doors and stepped into the warm Charleston evening air. For exactly 60 seconds, Maya let herself feel the full weight of the betrayal. She stood on the sidewalk outside the hotel she'd built, the hotel that bore her grandmother's maiden name on every piece of stationery, and she let the rage and hurt wash over her. She thought about Dorothy's calloused hands. She thought about every story her grandmother had told about being treated as less than human. She thought about the promise she'd made to do better, to be better, to create a space where that kind of hatred couldn't exist. She'd been wrong. She'd been so focused on building something beautiful that she'd forgotten to protect it. She'd hired Preston Hall as general manager based on his impressive resume and 20 years of hospitality experience. She'd trusted him to maintain the standards and values she'd built the Grandview on. She'd been traveling for the past 3 months, overseeing the opening of a second location in Atlanta, and she'd left the Charleston property in Preston's hands. What she was discovering, in real time, was exactly what kind of empire Preston had built in her absence. Maya pulled out her phone and sent a single text message to 3 people, her CFO Marcus Thompson, her head of HR Patricia Williams, and her lawyer David Kim. The message was simple: emergency meeting. Conference room B, 9 minutes. Code red. Code red was a protocol Maya had established when she first opened the Grandview. It was for situations that required immediate, decisive action. Situations where waiting even a day could cause irreparable damage. She'd never imagined she'd be using it like this. 7 minutes had passed. Maya walked around the side of the building, away from the main entrance where guests and staff might see her. She reached the executive entrance, a discreet door behind the concierge desk that most people didn't even know existed. She pulled out her key card, the one she'd never surrendered, the one that gave her access to every locked door in the building. The door clicked open. Maya stepped inside and moved through the service corridors like a ghost. She passed housekeeping staff pushing carts of fresh linens. They glanced at her but didn't recognize her in casual clothes, without the professional polish she usually wore during official visits. She passed the kitchen where her executive chef was preparing for the dinner service, shouting orders in French to his line cooks. She passed storage rooms and maintenance closets and employee break rooms. She reached conference room B and stepped inside. Marcus Thompson was already there, his laptop open on the table. Patricia Williams appeared on the video screen mounted on the wall, her face grim. David Kim joined the call seconds later, his expression professionally neutral but his eyes sharp. "Tell me you got all of that," Maya said without preamble. Marcus turned his laptop toward her. On the screen, security camera footage showed the front desk from multiple angles. Maya watched herself standing there, calm and dignified, while Jennifer Patterson looked at her with open contempt. The audio was crystal clear. Every word, Marcus said. Every facial expression. Every other staff member who stood there and said nothing. "How deep does this go?" Maya asked, though part of her already knew the answer would be worse than she'd imagined. Patricia pulled up a file and shared her screen. "We've been receiving complaints for the past 4 months. Guests of color being given inferior rooms despite paying the same rates. Reservations mysteriously canceled or lost. Racial slurs overheard in break rooms. A black couple reported that their anniversary suite was downgraded to a standard room at check-in, and when they complained, they were told the suite had a maintenance issue. We checked the maintenance logs. There was no issue. The suite was given to a white couple who booked it 2 days later." Maya's hands clenched into fists. All of this was reported? "Every single incident was reported to Preston Hall through the proper channels," Patricia said. "None of it was addressed. In fact, the staff members who filed complaints were either transferred to less desirable shifts or quietly encouraged to resign." "Where's Preston now?" Maya asked, her voice deadly quiet. Marcus checked another camera feed. "In his office. He's been there all evening. According to the timestamp, Jennifer called him 30 minutes ago, right after she turned you away." "And?" Marcus clicked on an audio file. Maya heard Jennifer's voice, muffled but clear enough. "Mr. Hall, there's a black woman at the desk insisting she has a reservation under Richardson. I told her we're full, but she won't leave." Then Preston's voice, smooth and amused. "Richardson? That's Rich. Just keep insisting. She'll go away eventually. They always do." And then, unmistakably, Preston Hall laughed. He laughed. Maya stood perfectly still, listening to Preston Hall's laughter echo through the conference room speakers. That sound, more than anything else that had happened tonight, crystallized everything she needed to know. This wasn't negligence. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was deliberate. This was a man who found her humiliation entertaining. "How long has this been going on?" Maya asked. Patricia hesitated. "For months of documented complaints. But I think it started earlier. Much earlier. Show me everything." For the next 20 minutes, Patricia walked Maya through a pattern of discrimination so systematic, so thorough, that it could only have been intentional. Guest after guest, incident after incident, complaint after complaint. A black businessman was accused of not being able to afford his room and asked to provide additional identification. A Latina family was told the pool was closed for maintenance, only to watch white guests swim there an hour later. An elderly black couple celebrating their 50th anniversary was given a room overlooking the dumpsters instead of the ocean view they'd paid for. Every single complaint had been filed with Preston Hall. Every single one had been dismissed, buried, or ignored. "There's more," Marcus said quietly. He pulled up Preston Hall's employment file. "I did some digging after tonight. Preston was the general manager at the Coastal Grand Hotel in Myrtle Beach before we hired him. He listed them as a reference, and they gave him a glowing recommendation. But that's not the whole story. What's the rest of it? He was asked to resign from Coastal Grand after multiple discrimination complaints from both guests and staff. The hotel settled those complaints quietly with non-disclosure agreements to avoid publicity. When we called for a reference, we spoke to the owner, who's an old friend of Preston's. He vouched for Preston without mentioning any of the issues." Maya felt sick. So he hid his history, came here, and built the exact same toxic culture he had at his last job. "It gets worse," David Kim said from the video screen. "I pulled corporate records. Jennifer Patterson, the desk clerk who turned you away tonight? She's Preston's niece. He hired her 3 months ago. Robert Chen, who you hired personally and who stood there tonight without saying a word. He filed 3 formal complaints about discriminatory practices. Preston buried all of them and put Robert on probation for what he called an attitude problem." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Preston Hall hadn't just been negligent. He'd been actively hostile to everything Maya had built the Grandview to represent. He'd surrounded himself with people who shared his views or who were too afraid to speak up against him. He'd created a fortress of hatred inside her grandmother's legacy. Maya thought back to when she'd hired Preston 15 months ago. He'd seemed perfect. Experienced, professional, articulate. He'd talked about excellence and guest satisfaction and maintaining the highest standards. He'd said all the right things in all the right ways. She'd been so relieved to find someone qualified, someone who seemed to understand her vision, that she hadn't dug deeper. She'd trusted the reference from Coastal Grand. She'd trusted his resume. She'd trusted that a man with 20 years in the industry would honor the values she'd built her business on. "I failed," Maya said quietly. "I built this place for my grandmother, and I let someone turn it into the exact kind of place that broke her spirit." "You didn't fail," Patricia said firmly. "Preston Hall is a predator. He's good at hiding what he is. He's done this before, and he'll do it again if we don't stop him here." Maya straightened her shoulders. Her grandmother hadn't raised her to wallow in guilt. Dorothy Richardson had been a fighter. She'd endured 50 years of indignity and still managed to save enough money to change her granddaughter's life. Maya owed it to her memory to fight just as hard. "What are my options?" Maya asked David. "Legally, you're in a strong position," David said. "You have documented evidence of discriminatory practices. You have multiple complaints that were ignored. You have proof that Preston knew about the discrimination and actively enabled it. You can terminate him for cause, and you can terminate anyone else who participated in or enabled this culture. The real question is how far you want to take this." "I want to take it as far as it needs to go," Maya said without hesitation. "I want everyone involved out of this building. Tonight." "That's going to cause problems," Marcus warned. "If you fire multiple people at once, especially at night, you'll be short-staffed. You might have to close for a few days to regroup." "I don't care. I'm not letting people who treat my guests like garbage keep working here just because it's convenient." "There's another consideration," Patricia said. "If you fire Preston for cause, he'll probably sue for wrongful termination. He'll claim discrimination, retaliation, breach of contract. He'll make this as ugly as possible." "Let him," Maya said coldly. "I'd love to see him try to prove wrongful termination when we have months of evidence showing he created a hostile environment for guests and staff. I'd love to watch him explain his own history of discrimination complaints in open court." David smiled slightly. "I was hoping you'd say that. I've already drafted the termination letter. I'll send it to your email now. All you have to do is deliver it." Maya checked her watch. 9 minutes had passed since she'd sent the code red message. She'd told Jennifer she'd be back in 9 minutes, and she'd meant it. But first, she had someone else to deal with. Preston Hall's office was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the lobby. Maya took the stairs instead of the elevator, needing the physical movement to channel her rage into something productive. She reached his door and didn't knock. She turned the handle and walked in like she owned the place. Because she did. Preston looked up from his desk with irritation that quickly transformed into confusion, then recognition, then pure terror. He half rose from his chair, his face going pale. "Ms. Richardson." I wasn't expecting you until next week. I know, Maya said, her voice perfectly calm. Surprise. She sat down in the chair across from his desk without being invited. I was just denied a room at my own hotel, Preston. By your niece, who suggested I'd be more comfortable at a highway motel. Would you like to explain to me how that happened? The color drained completely from Preston's face. There must be some mistake. Jennifer would never. There's no mistake. I have video footage. Audio recordings. Multiple camera angles. Your niece looked me in the eye and told me there were no rooms available for my kind. Then she threatened to have me arrested for trespassing if I came back. Preston's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I'm sure she didn't mean. Don't. Maya's voice cracked like a whip. Don't you dare make excuses for her. Don't you dare try to minimize what happened. I also have 4 months of documented complaints about discriminatory practices at this hotel. Complaints that were reported to you. Complaints you ignored, buried, or actively retaliated against. I can explain. I don't want explanations. I want you to understand something very clearly. My grandmother spent 50 years cleaning hotels. She scrubbed toilets and changed sheets in places where she wasn't allowed to eat in the restaurant or swim in the pool. She saved every penny she earned and left it to me with one instruction: build something they can never take from us. Build something where people like us are always welcome. Maya leaned forward. I built this hotel for her. I named it after her. And you turned it into the exact kind of place that broke her heart. Ms. Richardson, please. I'm not finished. I know about your history at Coastal Grand. I know about the discrimination complaints you faced there. I know you hid that history when you applied here. I know you hired your niece and surrounded yourself with people who share your views. I know you've been systematically creating a culture of hatred in a building that was supposed to be a monument to dignity. Preston's face flushed red. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. My legal team has been documenting everything. We have recordings. We have witness statements. We have internal communications. We have everything we need. Maya stood up and placed a printed letter on Preston's desk. You're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 10 minutes to collect your personal belongings from this office. Anything left behind will be boxed up and mailed to your home address. Preston surged to his feet, his face turning purple. You can't do this. I have a contract. I'll sue you for wrongful termination. I'll destroy you. Please do. David Kim's voice came through Maya's phone speaker, calm and professional. She'd had him on the line the entire time, recording everything. I'd love to present our evidence in open court. I'm sure the publicity would be fascinating. Hotel GM systematically discriminates against guests at Black-owned resort. The headlines write themselves. I'll claim you're discriminating against me. Preston shouted. A black woman firing a white man? I'll make sure everyone knows. That you were fired for cause after creating a hostile work environment and enabling racial discrimination? David's voice remained maddeningly calm. Please do. I encourage it. We welcome the opportunity to present our evidence publicly. Preston slumped back into his chair, the fight draining out of him as he realized he had no leverage. You'll regret this, he said weakly. No, Maya said. I regret hiring you. I regret trusting you. I regret every day I let you run this hotel. But I won't regret firing you. She turned and walked out of his office, leaving the door open behind her. 2 security guards were already waiting in the hallway. Marcus had called them. They moved past Maya and into Preston's office to supervise his departure. Maya leaned against the wall, her legs suddenly shaky. She'd done it. She'd fired him. But the anger hadn't subsided. If anything, it had grown stronger, because Preston was just the beginning. He'd built this culture, but other people had enabled it. Other people had participated in it. And Maya was going to root out every single one of them. She was heading back downstairs when Robertson appeared at the end of the hallway. He looked terrified, his hands shaking, but his voice was steady. Ms. Richardson, I need to tell you something. Maya waited. I should have spoken up today. I should have spoken up months ago when this started. I was afraid of losing my job, and that fear made me complicit in what happened to you and to other guests. He took a shaky breath. But I kept copies. Of everything. Every complaint I filed that Preston buried. Every racist comment I heard from staff. Every time a guest of color was mistreated. I documented all of it because I was waiting for someone to care enough to listen. I'm sorry it took you being humiliated for me to find my courage. Robert held out a USB drive. Maya took it, her fingers closing around the small device that apparently contained the evidence she needed to clean house completely. Thank you, Maya said quietly. This took courage, even if it took too long. Are you going to fire me too? Robert asked. I deserve it. I stood there tonight and said nothing while Jennifer disrespected you. Maya studied him for a long moment. She could see the genuine remorse in his eyes, the shame, the guilt. She could also see something else, the relief of finally speaking up, of finally being heard. No, she said. But you're going to help me fix this. Starting tonight. Maya took the USB drive from Robert Chen and headed back to conference room B. Marcus, Patricia, and David were still there, still on the call, waiting. Maya plugged the drive into the laptop and watched as folders appeared on the screen. There were dozens of them, organized by date, each one labeled with clinical precision: complaint reports, witness statements, staff communications, guest incidents. How long have you been documenting this? Maya asked. Robert, who had followed her into the conference room, said, almost 2 years. Since about 3 months after Preston started. 2 years. Patricia's voice came sharp through the speakers. You're telling me this has been going on for 2 years, not 4 months? The complaints you have in the official system only go back 4 months because that's when I started filing formal reports, Robert explained. Before that, I was just keeping records for myself. I didn't know if anyone would believe me, and I was afraid of retaliation. Marcus opened the first folder. It contained a detailed account of an incident from 20 months ago. A black family had checked in for a vacation. They'd booked 2 connecting ocean view rooms. When they arrived, they were told there had been a mistake and they were given 2 standard rooms on opposite ends of the 3rd floor, facing the parking lot. The parents had asked to speak to a manager. Preston had appeared, smooth and apologetic, explaining that the ocean view rooms had a plumbing issue. He'd offered them a complimentary dinner as compensation. Robert's notes showed that there had been no plumbing issue. The ocean view rooms had been given to a white family who checked in 3 hours later. Marcus clicked through more files. The pattern was undeniable. Guest after guest, incident after incident, excuse after excuse. Systems conveniently malfunctioned when people of color tried to check in. Rooms were suddenly unavailable. Reservations mysteriously cancelled. Upgrades that should have been automatic never materialized. And through it all, Preston Hall smiled and apologized and made excuses while doing absolutely nothing to fix the problems. Because they weren't problems to him. They were features. There's more, Robert said quietly. He clicked on a folder labeled Staff Communications. Inside were screenshots of text messages, emails, and even printed notes. Maya leaned forward, reading the first message. It was from Jennifer Patterson to another desk clerk, sent 6 weeks ago. Another one trying to check in. You know the drill. System error, no rooms available, suggest the cheap places. Preston says to keep the trash out. Maya's stomach turned. Another one. The trash. This wasn't just discrimination. This was dehumanization. The next message was worse. It was from Preston to Jennifer, dated 3 months ago, right after he'd hired her. Remember, we maintain standards here. Not everyone is Grandview material. Use your judgment, but make it look clean. System errors are your friend. He trained her, Patricia said, her voice shaking with fury. He literally trained his niece to discriminate and gave her the tools to hide it. Maya kept reading. There were messages between desk clerks coordinating their stories. There were emails from Preston praising staff members for handling difficult guests, with context making it clear that difficult meant black or brown. There was a printed note from a staff meeting where Preston had apparently said, "We need to be careful about maintaining the Grandview's image. Our clientele has certain expectations." Our clientele. Certain expectations. Code words for we cater to white guests. David Kim spoke up from the video call. This is more than enough for a wrongful termination defense. This is enough to pursue criminal charges if you want to go that route. What kind of criminal charges? Maya asked. Discrimination is a civil matter in most cases, but there are some criminal aspects we could explore. Creating a hostile work environment that results in harassment, conspiracy to defraud guests who paid for services they didn't receive, potential mail or wire fraud related to the reservation system manipulation. I'd have to research South Carolina's specific statutes, but there might be options. Maya shook her head. I don't care about criminal charges. I care about getting everyone involved out of this hotel and making sure they can never do this to anyone else. Then we need to identify everyone who was involved, Patricia said. Not just the people actively discriminating, but the people who knew and said nothing. Robert pulled up another file. I kept track of who was present during incidents. Who saw what happened and didn't report it. Who participated actively and who just stood by. The list was longer than Maya had feared. Jennifer Patterson was at the top, obviously. But there were others. Michael Torres, a bellhop who Robert had witnessed using racial slurs in the break room. Diane Murphy, a front desk supervisor who had been present during multiple incidents and never intervened. Kevin Wright, a concierge who had been caught on camera steering black guests away from the hotel's restaurant toward cheaper options nearby. And then there were the silent ones. The staff members who had witnessed discrimination and done nothing. Who had heard complaints and shrugged. Who had chosen their paychecks over their principles. How many people are we talking about? Maya asked. Robert did a quick count. Active participants? About 8. People who witnessed incidents and stayed silent? Another 10 or 12. 20 people. Out of a staff of 80. 1 in 4 employees was either actively discriminating or complicit in discrimination through their silence. Maya thought about her grandmother again. Dorothy would have been so disappointed. Not in Maya, but in the fact that even in a hotel built specifically to honor her memory, human cruelty had found a way to take root. Here's what we're going to do, Maya said. We call an emergency staff meeting. Every single person on shift tonight. We show them what happened to me today. We show them the evidence Robert collected. And we give them a choice. What choice? Marcus asked. If they participated in discrimination, if they witnessed it and said nothing, if they were part of this culture in any way, they can resign tonight with a neutral reference. Or they can stay and be terminated with cause, which will follow them for the rest of their careers. That's aggressive, Patricia warned. You could lose a quarter of your staff in one night. Then I'll lose a quarter of my staff, Maya said. I'd rather operate short-handed with good people than fully staffed with people who think it's acceptable to treat my guests like garbage. Some of them will sue, David cautioned. They'll claim you coerced them into resigning. Let them. We have evidence. We have documentation. We have everything we need to defend those terminations. Robert spoke up hesitantly. What about people like me? People who stayed silent but didn't actively participate. Maya looked at him. You documented everything. You were building a case even when you were afraid to report it officially. You finally found the courage to speak up. That's different from someone who just looked the other way because it was easier. But I still stayed silent when it mattered, Robert insisted. I watched you being humiliated today and I didn't say a word. You're right, Maya said bluntly. You should have spoken up. You should have spoken up months ago. But you're speaking up now, and you're helping me fix this. That counts for something. She stood up and checked her watch. It was 10:30 at night. Most of the day's shift had gone home, but the evening and night crews were still here. Housekeeping, front desk, concierge, security, restaurant staff. Probably 40 people total. Call everyone to the staff meeting room, Maya told Marcus. Everyone currently on shift. Tell them attendance is mandatory. Anyone who doesn't show up is automatically terminated. Marcus pulled out his phone and started making calls. Patricia began drafting the resignation forms and termination letters they would need. David stayed on the video call, ready to provide legal guidance if needed. Maya walked down to the lobby. She wanted to see Jennifer Patterson's face when she realized who Maya really was. She wanted to see the moment the smug contempt turned to terror. The front desk was busy with evening check-ins. Jennifer was there, laughing with another desk clerk about something. She looked relaxed, confident, completely unaware that her world was about to collapse. Maya approached the desk. Jennifer saw her coming and her expression immediately shifted to annoyance. I thought I told you to leave, Jennifer said loudly enough that other guests turned to look. Security, we have a trespasser. 2 security guards started moving toward Maya, then stopped when they recognized her. One of them had been present when Maya had fired Preston. He held up a hand to his colleague. Ms. Richardson, he said quietly. Jennifer's face went blank with confusion. Ms. Richardson? What are you? And then it clicked. Her eyes went wide. The color drained from her face. That's right, Maya said softly. I'm Maya Richardson. I own this hotel. The one you just denied me service at. The one where you threatened to have me arrested for trespassing. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. There's a mandatory staff meeting in 5 minutes, Maya continued. You're required to attend. If you're not there, you're automatically terminated. Your choice. Maya turned and walked away, leaving Jennifer frozen in shock behind the desk. The staff meeting room was designed to hold 50 people comfortably. Tonight, 43 employees crowded in, some sitting, most standing, all of them confused and nervous. Word had spread that Preston Hall had been fired. People whispered to each other, speculating about what was happening. Maya stood at the front of the room, her laptop connected to the large screen on the wall behind her. Marcus stood to her left, Patricia on video call, David on another screen ready to provide legal guidance. Robertson stood near the back, his presence a reminder that courage could come late but still matter. Jennifer Patterson slipped in last, her face pale and her hands shaking. She tried to hide in the back corner, but everyone's eyes followed her. They'd heard rumors about what she'd done. Maya waited until everyone was settled, then spoke in a calm, clear voice that carried through the room. "Thank you all for coming. I know this is unusual, and I know many of you are scared. You should be." The room went completely silent. "My name is Maya Richardson. I own this hotel. Some of you know that. Some of you have never met me because I've been traveling, opening our Atlanta location. I left the Charleston property in the hands of people I trusted. That was my mistake." Maya clicked the laptop. The screen behind her came to life, showing security camera footage from earlier that evening. The angle showed the front desk, the lobby, and Maya standing there in her business clothes with her luggage. "This is from 6 hours ago. Watch carefully." The footage played without sound at first. Maya standing at the desk. Jennifer's expression of contempt. Other staff members standing nearby, watching, doing nothing. The body language told the story even without audio. Then Maya turned on the sound. "I don't care what your reservation says. We don't have any rooms available for your kind tonight." Jennifer's voice filled the room, each word sharp and cruel. Maya watched the staff members' faces. Some looked horrified. Some looked uncomfortable. A few looked carefully neutral, like they'd known this was happening and had been hoping it would never come to light. The footage continued. Maya asking for a manager. Jennifer refusing. The threat to call security. And through it all, other staff members visible in the frame, saying nothing. When the video ended, Maya let the silence stretch for a long moment. "That was me," she said quietly. "Being denied service at my own hotel. Being threatened with arrest for trying to check into a room I'd reserved and paid for. Being told I'd be more comfortable at a highway motel." She clicked to the next slide. It showed the text message from Jennifer to another desk clerk, another one trying to check in. "You know the drill. This is from 6 weeks ago. Jennifer Patterson, Preston Hall's niece, coordinating with other staff to discriminate against guests. The trash," she called them. The trash. More slides. More messages. More evidence. Preston's email about maintaining standards. The pattern of system errors that only affected people of color. The coordinated lies and excuses. Some staff members looked genuinely shocked. Others looked sick. Jennifer was crying silently in the back corner, her shoulders shaking. "For the past 2 years, this hotel has been operating 2 different systems," Maya continued. "One for white guests, where reservations are honored and service is excellent. And one for everyone else, where rooms mysteriously become unavailable, systems malfunction, and dignity is optional." She pulled up Robert's documentation. Guest names, dates, incidents. The sheer volume of it was damning. "This is not what I built the Grandview to be. This is not what my grandmother's legacy was supposed to look like. This hotel exists because Dorothy Richardson spent 50 years cleaning hotels where she wasn't allowed to be a guest. She saved every penny to give me the chance to build something different. Something better. And while I was gone, people turned it into the exact kind of place that broke her heart." Maya's voice remained steady, but everyone in the room could hear the pain beneath it. "Preston Hall has been fired. He was escorted from the building an hour ago. His termination was for cause, meaning it will be documented and will follow him for the rest of his career. Jennifer Patterson, his niece, will be fired at the end of this meeting." Jennifer made a sound like a wounded animal, but Maya didn't look at her. "But they're not the only ones responsible. Discrimination doesn't happen in a vacuum. It requires participants and it requires silence. It requires people who actively mistreat guests and people who watch it happen and say nothing." Maya clicked to another slide. This one showed a list of names. 8 people highlighted in red. 12 in yellow. The people highlighted in red participated directly in discriminatory practices. "You made racist comments. You manipulated the reservation system. You lied to guests. You treated people differently based on the color of their skin." The people highlighted in yellow witnessed discrimination and said nothing. "You stood by while your coworkers humiliated guests. You heard complaints and shrugged. You chose your comfort over other people's dignity." The room was so quiet Maya could hear people breathing. "Here's what's going to happen. If your name is on this list, you have 2 choices. You can resign tonight, right now, with a neutral reference that says you left for personal reasons. Or you can refuse to resign, and you will be terminated with cause. That termination will be documented. It will include the specific incidents you were involved in. And it will follow you to every job interview, every background check, every reference call for the rest of your career." Someone near the front, a woman Maya didn't recognize, raised her hand. "What if we didn't know this was happening? What if we just worked our shifts and didn't see anything?" "If your name isn't on this list, you're not being asked to resign," Maya said. "But I want you to understand something. Going forward, silence is participation. If you see discrimination happening and you say nothing, you're just as responsible as the person doing it. This hotel has a zero-tolerance policy for racism, sexism, homophobia, or any other form of discrimination. That policy will be enforced. If you can't live with that, now is the time to leave. Marcus stepped forward with a stack of resignation forms. Anyone whose name is highlighted needs to make a decision. You have 10 minutes. Sign the resignation form and you can leave with a neutral reference. Refuse to sign and you'll receive a termination letter with the specific reasons for your termination. Jennifer pushed through the crowd, her face red and blotchy from crying. This isn't fair. I was just doing what Preston told me to do. I was following orders. Maya finally looked directly at her. Following orders has never been an excuse for cruelty. You looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't welcome at my own hotel. You called other guests trash. You coordinated with coworkers to discriminate systematically. You enjoyed it, Jennifer. I saw your face. You enjoyed the power of telling someone they weren't good enough. I didn't mean it like that. Jennifer protested. I was just. You meant exactly what you said. Sign the resignation form or wait for the termination letter. Those are your only options. Jennifer grabbed a form from Marcus, scrawled her signature across it, and ran from the room sobbing. Over the next 10 minutes, 12 more people signed resignation forms. Some cried. Some argued. Some signed silently and left with their heads down. A few tried to defend themselves, claiming they'd just been joking or they hadn't meant any harm, but Maya didn't engage. The evidence was clear. The choice was simple. By midnight, 13 staff members had resigned. 8 had refused and were served with termination letters. 21 people total, out of a staff of 80. Just over a quarter of the workforce, gone in a single night. The remaining staff members looked shell-shocked. Maya couldn't blame them. They just watched their colleagues and managers be purged in one of the most brutal displays of accountability most of them had ever witnessed. I know this is hard, Maya said to the people who remained. I know some of you worked alongside these people. Some of you were friends with them. But I need you to understand why this was necessary. Every single guest who walks through our doors deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Not just the white guests. Not just the wealthy guests. Everyone. She pulled up one more slide. It was a photo of her grandmother, Dorothy Richardson, in her maid's uniform, taken sometime in the 1970s. Dorothy's face was lined with exhaustion, but her eyes were fierce and proud. This is my grandmother. She cleaned hotels for 50 years. She was invisible to the guests, and worse, she was treated like a problem by the staff. She saved every penny she earned and left it to me with one instruction: build something they can never take from us. Build something where people like us are always welcome. Maya's voice finally broke, just slightly. I built this hotel for her. I named it after her. And I almost let it become the exact kind of place that broke her spirit. That ends tonight. The Grandview Resort will be what it was always meant to be. A place where everyone is welcome. A place where dignity matters more than the color of your skin. She clicked off the presentation. Everyone remaining on this staff will go through mandatory anti-discrimination training starting tomorrow. We'll bring in professional facilitators. Attendance is not optional. We'll also be implementing new policies and procedures to ensure this never happens again. There will be anonymous reporting systems. There will be regular audits. There will be accountability. Maya looked around the room at the exhausted, emotional faces staring back at her. I know we're short-staffed now. I know the next few weeks are going to be difficult. But I'd rather operate at half capacity with good people than at full capacity with people who think cruelty is acceptable. If you're here, if you stayed, I'm trusting that you share the values this hotel was built on. Don't make me regret that trust. She dismissed them. The staff filed out slowly, some whispering to each other, others silent and thoughtful. Robertson lingered behind. Thank you for giving me a chance to make this right, he said. You're going to be acting front desk manager until I can hire someone permanent, Maya told him. You know what went wrong. Help me make sure it never happens again. Robert nodded, his expression serious. I won't let you down. After he left, Maya sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. Marcus sat down beside her. That was brutal, he said quietly. It had to be. I know. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. Some of those people will sue. Some will go to the media and claim they were treated unfairly. There will be backlash. Let them come, Maya said. We have the evidence. We have the documentation. We have everything we need to defend our actions. Patricia's voice came through the laptop speakers. The story is already starting to spread. One of the fired employees posted on social media claiming she was fired for no reason. It's getting traction. Maya pulled out her phone and looked at the post. Jennifer Patterson had written a long, tearful message claiming she'd been fired by a cruel boss who had it out for her. She made no mention of the discrimination, the racist language, the systematic mistreatment of guests. She painted herself as a victim. The comments were divided. Some people expressed sympathy. Others pointed out that there had to be more to the story. A few had already started connecting the dots, noting that this was the same hotel where the black owner had reportedly been denied service. "We need to control the narrative," Marcus said. "No," Maya said firmly. "We need to tell the truth. I'll make a statement tomorrow. I'll explain exactly what happened and why these people were fired. I'll show the evidence if I have to. But I'm not going to hide what happened here." "That's risky," David warned from the video call. "The more public you make this, the more attention you'll attract. Some of that attention will be negative. I don't care. My grandmother spent 50 years being invisible. I'm not going to be invisible. I'm going to stand up and say this is what happened, this is why it was wrong, and this is what I did about it." By 2 in the morning, the hotel was finally quiet. The remaining staff had returned to their posts. The guests who'd been disturbed by the emergency meeting had been placated with complimentary room service. Maya sat in her grandmother's office. She'd always thought of it as Dorothy's office, even though her grandmother had never worked there, and tried to process everything that had happened. She'd been back in Charleston for less than 12 hours. In that time, she'd been humiliated. She'd discovered a systematic pattern of discrimination at her own hotel, she'd fired her general manager and nearly a quarter of her staff, and she'd become the center of a social media storm. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "I saw the posts. Are you okay?" Maya typed back, "I'm fine. Grandma would be proud." Her mother's response was immediate, "She would be. But she'd also tell you to get some sleep. You can't fix everything in one night." Maya smiled despite her exhaustion. Her mother was right. There was still so much work to do. She needed to hire a new general manager. She needed to rebuild her staff. She needed to repair the damage that had been done to the Grandview's reputation, both with the guests who'd been mistreated and with the wider community. But tonight, she'd taken the first step. She'd cleaned house. She'd drawn a line and said this far and no further. She'd honored her grandmother's memory by refusing to let hatred flourish in a place built from love. Maya pulled up a photo on her phone. It was the same one she'd shown the staff, Dorothy in her maid's uniform. But this version was closer, and you could see the details. The calluses on Dorothy's hands. The tiredness in her eyes. But also the strength in her jaw, the pride in her posture. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see what was happening," Maya whispered to the photo. "But I see it now. And I'm going to make sure it never happens again." The story broke on the morning news 3 days later. Not because Maya had contacted the media, but because one of the fired employees had gone to a local television station with a story about unfair termination. The employee, a desk supervisor named Diane Murphy, claimed she'd been fired without cause in the middle of the night as part of a personal vendetta. The news station, to their credit, had done their homework before airing the story. They'd contacted Maya for comment. And Maya, true to her word, had told them everything. Now, at 7 in the morning, Maya sat in her office watching the segment air on the local Charleston news. A luxury resort in Charleston is at the center of a controversy this week after the owner fired more than 20 employees in a single night, the anchor said. But the story behind those firings is far more complex than it first appeared. The screen cut to footage of the Grandview Resort, its elegant facade gleaming in the morning sun. Then it cut to a phone interview with Maya. "I was denied service at my own hotel," Maya's voice said, calm and clear. "A desk clerk looked at me and told me there were no rooms available for my kind. She suggested I'd be more comfortable at a highway motel. She threatened to have me arrested for trespassing. And when I investigated, I discovered this wasn't an isolated incident. It was systematic." The segment showed carefully edited portions of the security footage from that night. Maya standing at the desk. Jennifer's contemptuous expression. The threat to call security. The news station had blurred Jennifer's face to avoid legal issues, but the context was crystal clear. Then the anchor's voice continued. "According to documents provided by Ms. Richardson, complaints about discriminatory treatment had been filed for months but were ignored or buried by management. The hotel's former general manager, Preston Hall, was terminated for cause. Multiple staff members were given the option to resign or be fired. 21 people left the hotel that night." The segment included a brief interview with Diane Murphy, who claimed the firings were excessive and cruel. But then it cut to Patricia Williams, Maya's head of HR, explaining the documented pattern of discrimination. "We had months of evidence showing systematic mistreatment of guests based on race," Patricia said. "Reservations mysteriously cancelled. Rooms suddenly unavailable. Guests being treated differently depending on the color of their skin. When confronted with this evidence, employees were given a choice: resign with a neutral reference or be terminated with documentation of their actions. That's more than fair. The segment ended with Maya speaking directly to the camera. My grandmother spent 50 years cleaning hotels where she wasn't allowed to be a guest. She saved every penny to give me the chance to build something better. I'm not going to let anyone turn her legacy into the kind of place that broke her spirit. The Grandview Resort will be what it was always meant to be, a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of the color of their skin. Marcus walked into Maya's office as the segment ended. It's already going viral. Social media is exploding. Maya pulled up Twitter on her laptop. The segment had been shared thousands of times in the past hour. The comments were divided, as she'd expected. Some people applauded her decisive action. Others accused her of overreacting, of playing the race card, of destroying people's lives over minor incidents. But one comment stood out, shared by hundreds of people: imagine being so racist you deny the owner service at her own hotel. Imagine being so confident in your racism that you threaten to have her arrested. This is why accountability matters. Another comment that gained traction: my family was denied service at this hotel 2 years ago. We thought we were imagining things when our reservation got lost and they suddenly had no rooms. Turns out we weren't crazy. Thank you, Ms. Richardson, for believing us. That comment had dozens of replies from other people sharing similar stories. Guest after guest, incident after incident, all adding up to a picture of systematic discrimination that had been hiding in plain sight. The backlash came fast, too. A conservative news outlet ran a segment calling Maya's actions "cancel culture gone mad." A blogger wrote an article titled "Black Hotel Owner Fires White Employees, Is This Reverse Racism?" The comment sections filled with people claiming she was the real racist, that she was destroying innocent people's lives, that she was everything wrong with America. Maya read some of the comments, then closed the laptop. She'd known this would happen. She'd known that standing up against racism would make her a target. But she also knew that staying silent would have been worse. Her phone rang. It was an unlisted number. Maya answered cautiously. "Ms. Richardson? This is Simone Johnson. I heard about what happened at your hotel. I'm calling to apply for the general manager position." Maya sat up straight. Simone Johnson was a legend in the hospitality industry. She'd turned around 3 failing hotels, earned awards for excellence, and had a reputation for running operations with both integrity and profitability. "I didn't realize the position was posted yet," Maya said. "It's not. But I've been watching your story. What you did took courage. The kind of courage I want to work for." Simone's voice was warm but professional. "I'm currently the GM at a resort in Miami, but my contract is up in 2 months. I'd like to talk to you about bringing that experience to Charleston." They talked for an hour. Simone understood exactly what Maya was trying to build. She dealt with discrimination in her own career, had implemented systems to prevent it, had created cultures of genuine hospitality rather than performative service. By the end of the call, Maya knew she'd found the right person. "I'll have my lawyer draft a contract," Maya said. "Can you start in 2 months?" "I can start in 6 weeks if you need me sooner." "I need you sooner." Over the next 3 weeks, the Grandview Resort operated with a skeleton crew. Maya worked 70-hour weeks, covering shifts herself when necessary. She checked guests in. She answered phones. She supervised housekeeping. She wanted every employee to see that she wasn't asking them to do anything she wouldn't do herself. The mandatory anti-discrimination training took place in waves. Professional facilitators came in and led difficult conversations about bias, privilege, and the impact of discrimination. Some staff members were resistant at first, but most came around when they heard the stories from guests who'd been mistreated. Robert Chen proved himself invaluable. He knew the systems, knew the staff, and knew exactly where the weak points had been. He helped Maya redesign the reservation process to include automatic flags for any cancellation or room change, requiring manager approval for any modification within 48 hours of check-in. He helped implement anonymous reporting systems so staff could report discrimination without fear of retaliation. The new hires were carefully vetted. Maya personally interviewed every single candidate, not just for skills but for values. She asked pointed questions about their experiences with diversity, their thoughts on discrimination, their understanding of hospitality. Several qualified candidates didn't make the cut because their answers revealed biases Maya wasn't willing to tolerate. 6 weeks after the purge, Simone Johnson arrived. She spent her first week observing everything, talking to staff, reviewing systems. Then she sat down with Maya and said, "You did the hard part. You cleaned house. Now let's build something better." Together, they redesigned the entire operation. New training programs. New accountability measures. New promotion paths that rewarded excellence and integrity rather than seniority and silence. They brought in guest speakers, people who'd experienced discrimination in hotels, to help the staff understand the real impact of their actions. 3 months after the night Maya had been denied service, the Grandview Resort hosted a special event. Maya stood in the lobby, now filled with staff members who understood what the hotel stood for, and unveiled a new addition to the decor. Behind the front desk, in a place of honor where every guest would see it, hung a large portrait of Dorothy Richardson. Not the small photo Maya had shown the staff that night, but a professional, dignified portrait. Dorothy wore her maid's uniform, but the photographer had captured something beyond the uniform. The strength in her eyes. The pride in her bearing. The determination of a woman who'd endured 50 years of indignity and still believed her granddaughter could build something better. Below the portrait, a brass plaque read, "In memory of Dorothy Richardson and all those who were never made to feel welcome. May this place honor your dignity forever." Maya gave a short speech to the assembled staff and guests. "My grandmother used to tell me that hospitality isn't about fancy lobbies or expensive linens. It's about making people feel like they matter. Every person who walks through these doors matters. Every guest deserves to feel welcome, safe, and respected. That's not a policy. That's not a training module. That's who we are." The guests applauded. The staff, many of them new, looked up at Dorothy's portrait with understanding. They got it. They understood what the Grandview was supposed to be. After the ceremony, an elderly black couple approached Maya. The woman's eyes were filled with tears. "We were here 2 years ago," she said quietly. "It was our anniversary. We'd saved for months to afford a nice hotel. When we checked in, they gave us the worst room in the place, even though we'd paid for an ocean view. When we complained, they told us there'd been a mistake but nothing could be done. We spent our anniversary looking at a parking lot." Her husband added, "We saw the news story. We saw what you did. We wanted to come back and see if things had really changed." "Did they?" Maya asked. The woman smiled through her tears. "We checked in an hour ago. Ocean view suite. The staff was wonderful. This is what we'd hoped for the first time." She pulled Maya into a hug. "Thank you for not letting them win. Thank you for fighting for people like us." After they left, Maya stood alone in the lobby for a moment, looking up at her grandmother's portrait. She thought about that night 6 months ago when she'd stood in the same spot and been told she wasn't welcome. She thought about the rage and pain and betrayal she'd felt. But mostly, she thought about the promise she'd made to her grandmother. "Build something they can never take from us." They tried to take it. Preston Hall and Jennifer Patterson and all the others had tried to corrupt it, to turn it into another place where people like Dorothy Richardson were invisible or worse. But Maya had fought back. She'd cleaned house. She'd rebuilt from the ground up. And now, finally, the Grandview Resort was what it was always meant to be. A place where everyone was welcome. A place where dignity mattered more than the color of your skin. A place that honored the memory of a woman who'd spent 50 years being told she didn't belong, and who'd saved every penny to ensure her granddaughter could build something better. Maya Richardson had been denied a room at her own hotel. 9 minutes later, she'd started the process of firing everyone responsible. But the real story wasn't about revenge or even justice. It was about a black woman who'd built something beautiful, nearly lost it to the same prejudices that had haunted her grandmother, and then fought like hell to reclaim it, not just for herself, but for every person who'd ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. The firings made national news eventually. Hotel owner cleans house after being denied service became a story about accountability, about standing up against discrimination, about refusing to let hatred flourish in spaces built from love. Some people called Maya a hero. Others called her excessive. But everyone agreed on one thing: she'd made a statement that couldn't be ignored. 6 months later, the Grandview Resort had a waiting list for reservations. Word had spread about the changes Maya had implemented, about the culture of genuine hospitality she'd created. People wanted to stay at a hotel where they knew they'd be treated with dignity. Where the staff understood that every guest mattered. Where the portrait of a black woman in a maid's uniform hung behind the front desk as a reminder that hospitality means honoring everyone's humanity. Maya still thought about that night sometimes. The shock of being denied service. The betrayal of discovering how deep the corruption went. The rage that had fueled her to take decisive action. But she also thought about what came after. The difficult work of rebuilding. The satisfaction of creating something genuinely good. The joy of hearing from guests who felt truly welcome for the first time. Her grandmother had given her a mission: build something they can never take from us. Maya had built it. She'd nearly lost it. And then she'd fought to reclaim it, not through violence or revenge, but through accountability and the fierce belief that dignity matters, that respect matters, that every person deserves to be treated as fully human. The Grandview Resort stood as a monument to that belief. Not perfect, because nothing run by humans could ever be perfect. But better. Always striving to be better. Always remembering that hospitality isn't about grand gestures or luxury amenities. It's about making people feel like they matter. And in the end, that was Dorothy Richardson's true legacy. Not the building or the business, but the unwavering belief that everyone deserves dignity, and the courage to fight for that belief even when it's hard, even when it's costly, even when the whole world seems to be against you. Maya stood in her office late one evening, looking out at the ocean, and made a promise to her grandmother's memory one more time. "I'll keep fighting, Grandma. For as long as it takes. For everyone who comes after us. I'll make sure the Grandview is always a place where people like us are welcome. Where everyone is welcome. That's your legacy. And I'll protect it with everything I have." The waves rolled in against the shore, steady and eternal. And Maya knew, with absolute certainty, that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Because sometimes justice isn't about grand courtroom victories or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's about the quiet, determined work of building something good and refusing to let anyone corrupt it. Sometimes it's about firing 21 people in a single night because their cruelty had no place in a monument to dignity. And sometimes, justice is simply about honoring the memory of a woman who spent 50 years being invisible, by making sure that no one who walked through the doors of the Grandview Resort would ever be made to feel invisible again. That was Maya Richardson's justice. That was Dorothy Richardson's legacy. And that was the Grandview Resort's promise to every guest who would ever cross its threshold: you matter. You belong. You are welcome here. Always.